All right, everyone, thank you so much for coming out. It's 11:30, and we are nothing about, if not about efficiency at the CaDC, with data, efficiency, it's all good things. Thank you for coming out. Open House, we launched this project around 18 months ago, very appreciative of the coalition of water managers who invested, very visionary group, really appreciative of that. There's a lot of materials over there if you haven't already, so at 12:30, please be sure to check it out. A lot of also both the project key staff and then also academic collaborators. It's very much a team effort, so please do talk to folks, have little things identifying them about topic areas, so please do that. And the last other housekeeping, if you have lunch, have lunch. And then after the presentation, if you have any ideas about how to make conservation a way of life, there's a fun little idea board over here. Right, so we came here today when we launched this project. One of the key questions is, there's a lot of interest. Everyone from the Western Governors Association to the White House was talking about the need to modernize California's water data systems. Historic drought, worse than 600 years. Really benefited from working from a lot of visionary local water managers who said, okay, that's the big picture, what's the key value proposition? So we're gonna have a panel discussion with some of our really leading local water managers and leaders across the region. First, want to have kind of a short presentation from some of our key team members answering that key foundational question of what is the value proposition. Now first, you may be wondering, we're having a panel talk about the future of water management. What does that mean? When we're talking about a lot of different things, as we cope and navigate a lot of future uncertainty, worst drought, coming out the worst drought in 600 years. Tell you a simple story. Many of you have heard, what we call kind of the Netflix story. Ask us about it later if you have not. That helps one of our partner utilities save around $20 million. I always joke when I was asked that, people were always like, Netflix, are you guys filming a documentary? And the answer was always no. We just partnered with one of their data scientists. But now we actually are filming a documentary to help that will be debated at the Stanford Data Summit later in August. So when we talk about the future of water management, a couple of key things. Very common sense, and it's kind of the shift that many of you will see the rest of your how you live, work, and play. Things like personalization. Increasingly there's a move as we were fresh off this historic drought to kind of personalize what your water service means to you exactly, both at the level of rates, in terms of the conservation programs, that it's customized more at the level of the individual. Two, if you see common sense in a leading California technology company like Netflix, they test and measure everything. So that's very much in the spirit of integrating data and what we do at the CaDC. And three, much more of kind of a subscription model. So that's one of the things that we kind of as we look towards the future of water, what you're really paying for is not actually the gallon of water or whatever is on your bill. It's actually orders and orders of magnitude of cheaper than bottled water. What you're paying for is the ability to, whenever you want, turn on the tap and get a high quality water supply. So that's the vision. That's kind of the big picture. You might be wondering, what have we really achieved in these past 18 months? One of our biggest foundational claims to fame, we were funded by the Water Foundation to do the first ever rapid assessment of the governor's statewide efficiency targets. A couple of key things. It's very much a planning and education tool. The idea is to give a ballpark assessment of what the efficiency goals look like across California. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the concept of a water budget, it's basically saying what's a reasonable amount of use both indoors, so what are the number of people, generalized kind of per capita allocation there, and then what is reasonable to use outdoors. So looking at how big a yard a residence has, what's the local climate and evapotranspiration. So very, very, very complex data integration project that we had to do statewide, which speaks to some of the value of the underlying data infrastructure developed. A couple of key things to note. This was very much a first assessment. We did this for around 4% of what the state budgeted. Very much a planning first approach, kind of aligns with a lot of, if anyone sees how a lot of the trends, both increasingly within government, to do things kind of on a more iterative, agile basis. And then two, there's also a lot of opportunities for improvement, very much a first assessment, still looking for kind of like the definitions in terms of what is the actual landscape area. It's a planning tool, first approximation, lots of opportunities to improvement, which he speaks to. Like the state recently passed a piece of legislation, AB 1755, which we have our resident expert, Tony, leave a wave. Talk to you if you're interested in that. But things like common sense things, like knowing what are the boundaries of all of California's major water retailers. That's actually, you might think we have all of those. The state of California, we don't actually have that yet. Opportunity for improvement as we go forward. And then also very foundationally, I used to be a Coro fellow. This is a map looking at efficiency goals. It's policy neutral. You can put in whatever gallons per capita indoor you want, any ET adjustment factor. We're trying to support water managers in setting, looking towards the future and planning for future uncertainty. But it's a map. It's a map. It's actually not. There's tons of local circumstances. We try to be very quantitatively rigorous in terms of how those goals are qualified. We had a really great working group chaired by Elizabeth Lovestead, who's on our panel, and we really appreciate our water managers providing a lot of that local experience and intuition to have the appropriate qualifiers, and then also partner with the Civic Spark Fellows to do kind of an on-the-ground survey, which really speaks to, looking at an indoor and outdoor, just measuring the yard. There's a lot of other things that go into water use. So I wanted to turn it over to Anna, because what they've been doing is working really hard, going above and beyond to do really path-breaking survey of outdoor water use efficiency attitudes. So I wanted to give you kind of a quick snapshot of some of those hot off the presses facts. So I'll turn that over to.
Hello, my name is Anna Garcia, and I'm a Civic Spark Water Action Fellow at Eastern Municipal Water District. And so for our Civic Spark Volunteer Engagement Project, 5 other Inland Empire Fellows and I worked with the Data Collaborative to survey homeowners on their outdoor water use. We organized 5 survey days across 3 counties in Southern California, and with 4 other fellows, we organized a survey day in the Bay Area and another in the Central Coast. We visited across the state over 1,000 homes. And with the help of over 40 volunteers. And of those who responded to our survey, 70% said that they have lived in California for at least 26 years. Of this population, half said that they maintain their own landscaping, and a third said that they have converted to drought-tolerant landscaping within the last 5 years. So we really enjoyed talking to our neighbors about their outdoor water use, and we're really excited to see what else we can get from this survey data.
Well, thank you so much, Anna. And a couple of key, that sort of common sense surveys. I know Irvine Ranch Water District does a lot of these surveys, and so particularly as we look to understand and move towards what's really the next frontier of outdoor water use efficiency. It's not like when you're doing an indoor efficiency where you have a toilet, people just kind of flush however much they do. There's much more of a behavioral component. So there's very much a need to do this sort of work, and they've really gone above and beyond. I think Governor Brown's motto for this sort of thing was like hard work, low pay, long hours. So really appreciate all the work that they've done and all these things there. So please join me in thanking Anna and the Civic Spark Fellows. But that kind of speaks to one of the key questions is what does this look like for local water utilities? We're looking at this big picture, statewide perspective, this planning tool. What is the value of this underlying data infrastructure that we've developed? Well, it's a lot of different things, and what we're looking at is metered water use data as a foundational data point. When we're talking about looking at urban demand statewide, that's actually getting underneath all of the kind of very, very, very various ways to aggregate it. Very common sense if you think about it. We're in the city of LA, that's 4 million people. We also work with retailers that serve, say 10,000 people. Having just one data point for 4 million people and one for 10,000 people doesn't make a lot of sense. So having actual metered water use data, extremely, extremely valuable both for research perspectives and also analytical tools. So what we have up here is both the kind of subscription fees of around typically $35,000 a year for participation and subscription to our nonprofit. And then against that also, so by way of comparison, some of the example, consultant things, because this helps power things like whether that's, we have a rate modeling tool, looking at the water evaluation, water use efficiency report, looking at master planning, a lot of long-term benefits there. And I would stress long-term because, launched 18 months ago, we are very proud at a technical level of the work that we've developed. I'll give you one example. We did a statistical analysis of the water savings at turf. If you came in the front, that was when we were launching this project. That was our research project that kind of helped launch this whole thing. But that was elaborated. Christopher Tull, who I do not see, who is much smarter than me, helped to develop an improvement on that. That statistical analysis was presented at the Knowledge Discovery and Data Mining Conference. You may never have heard of this. It's one of the world-leading Silicon Valley, very kind of blue chip, blue ribbon, that sort of thing. But I would stress, opportunities for improvement. That's why we're really excited to partner and collaborate with folks like Holly. I know there's a lot of other folks, studies out of UCLA, UCR, tons of folks have been looking at these water savings questions. And it's not just the water savings questions. I'd go back to, and it's why, like the work with the Civic Spark Fellows is so key, that local customization. Because, we did a lot of these infrastructural investment in some of these statistics. Candidly, we were worse than many of the existing offerings. There's a big opportunity improvement, but what I'd say is that there's an infrastructural investment and a long-term value there. It's very much with CADC, it's a team effort. It requires a lot of, in terms of getting that local customization, really foundational to work with, technical staff across the utilities. It doesn't really, as I tell my team a lot, the data work, data doesn't do anything. What you really need to do is work and collaborate with people who have that, that local context and those decision makers who can use that to really make, allocate resources more effectively. And from that, there's one of the key things I'd like to kind of stress for you. This is a slide that we had when we launched this project at the Association of California Water Agencies in December of 2015. And there's a big shift. You see this, when people talk about, City of LA talks about their open data efforts, last two presidential administrations, everyone is modernizing government and data. Public data is very much a hot topic. And I think foundationally, there's a lot that actually can be I really value, and I think it's been very foundational to the success of this project, to have, somewhat skeptical, healthy skepticism from the water management community about, okay, what can this really do? There's this new technology shift from sort of Excel for everything to more, modern data science tools. What does that mean for water? And one of the key things is to note is there's a lot that we can, the public data world can learn from how, water utilities manage and, achieve that kind of technocratic excellence. So I wanted to talk about that in terms of the underlying infrastructure that we've developed and some of the really impressive achievements there. Varun Adibatla, one of my colleagues, I always butcher your name.
Got it right this time.
Really? Okay, good. And you might be able to, sort of like my data brother in arms, so you might not be able to see the family resemblance, but he's flew in here from New York, done a lot of really kind of incredible data work out there. And wanted to turn it over to him for a bit to talk about translate some of the underlying infrastructure we developed.
Thank you, Patrick. So just following off Patrick's comment on data not doing anything, we try to make the data do something. And so my name is Varun. I had a career in Wall Street and also in decision making. I spent 8 years putting together data infrastructures for big banks, ensuring that money was flowing in high precision and ensuring that money was not being lost. So so I brought that experience to really start building with our team over here the data infrastructures to ensure that water data is flowing efficiently. And part of doing that is I think one of the things that I can convey in simple terms that I'd like you to take away from this, from the work that we're doing, is really what I've realized in the past 18 months of being involved in this effort is developing like a water data infrastructure is very similar to developing a physical water infrastructure. I mean, the whole point of putting together large pipes to deliver water from groundwater reservoirs and things like that is to efficiently deliver water into effectively what's a glass of drinking, a drinking water glass. And so similarly, developing a water data infrastructure involves putting together the data pipes, right? And ensuring that these data pipes do, they get this water data from all these different sources, which is water utilities, the usage data, the customer location data, the rebate data, the audit data, get those pipes up, integrate those data sources, bring together other administrative data like federal data sources, socioeconomic data, local data sources, and then the point, I guess the proverbial delivery of water data into this drinking water glass is delivering analytics so that you can start making better decisions with the water data. And you're able to do that more quickly, and you're able to like be more adaptable to uncertain futures. And so developing dashboards and writing Excel macros is a way of doing that, but it's not how you scale a data infrastructure. You need to lay those data pipes to be able to like do this at scale for 410 water entities in the state of California. So this is just a peek at our data plumbing work. I'm a self-proclaimed data plumber, right? And so that's just kind of like some of the pipes over there. So a bunch of that is we're using Airbnb's data infrastructure that they open sourced. So a lot of this data infrastructure that's being powered to move water data so that you're doing something with the water data was actually coming out of Airbnb to ensure that people book an Airbnb. And so we're using their technology, leveraging those innovations, and putting it to use here. So thank you.
Thank you. So what does that mean? Well, let me tell you a little secret that's actually something hiding in plain sight, which is that many, when you look at talk to folks about big system integration projects in government, folks often cringe, and then it's a challenge, often perennial problem of cost overruns and what have you. One of the open secrets is that the technology to be able to deliver one of these large-scale system integration projects like we had to do for the governor's efficiency framework, the technology problems have all largely been solved. Cloud computing, open source software, it's what we've really shifted, and it's a very fundamental shift from sort of a technological innovation, which was you see, the web, but we're ballpark a little over 2 decades old, and as we went into the digital revolution, we're really much more in a technology deployment phase, which is a big, massive shift, and is why you're able to see a company, say like Airbnb, hugely different domain, hugely different business than water, but from a technological perspective, the way that they go from a couple of people in Y Combinator to a global company doing billions of dollars of value in just a couple of years, same sort of technology shift that's working here. And that really speaks to the long-term value, because beyond helping deploy these analytics and help it's a little bit of a shift from the sort of the standard kind of Excel for everything model, but some of these analytics, these planning benefits, there's also beneath that, just in the level of a pure IT, we work with all these billing systems, and Senator Hertzberg, there was this piece of legislation, SB 272, that requires every local government in California to inventory their systems. We have a special kind of fun, looking at the cost and digging into the weeds of all of those. Long-winded way of saying, what does this mean for folks as a water manager? Those systems generally, one, are very frustrating to work with, so often suboptimal technology, and often candidly a little bit too expensive. You see some of these professional services agreements, it's like 6 figures for enterprise DBA, whatever, and we're kind of wondering, what do they do, right? An SQL statement once a month. So very much an opportunity long-term to kind of help open up the industry and achieve cost savings. That not only there's this future analytical value, but there's also very much a here and now nuts and bolts cost savings by helping open up the industry to increased competition from the kind of wider sphere of technology marketplace. So what does that mean? We asked at the beginning of this project, and we asked, I was highlighting the question at the beginning of today, what is the long-term business model of the CADC? Well, not to beat around the bush, we're going to help deliver a lot of these valuable analytical tools that support water managers in meeting their reliability objectives. And long-term, the promise and the opportunity and the challenge, very hard problem, but which our instruction to deliver is to help participating utilities save money while doing that. So far, in terms of the value, we see up here very much in kind of terms of planning benefits, being able to look to the future, do scenario analysis, things like that planning tool we did based on the governor's framework. Also have, as we get deeper into that, there's a little bit more things. I know our friends at Molten Nagel, we had a lot of fun sort of co-developing, which is really cool, by the way, working with data scientists within a water utility and our data team to develop a rate comparison tool, which after this you should go in here and check out. So big benefit there long term, and then also really going into what are the program evaluation. We're investing all this money in conservation and water efficiency. How well did that work? This metered water use data, very, 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 very foundational to being able to answer those basic questions of what's the cost effectiveness of that. And then longer term, there's a lot of hypotheses and ideas in terms of how you can use this data, improve forecasting, to wheel water around more efficiently, really integrate that with supply so you can optimize operations. Some of that might sound a bit new, a bit uncertain. A lot of this, honestly, stuff that, the energy sector, a lot of that has already been done. It's been done in other industries throughout the world. And before bring up the panel, let's just kind of talk about as we look towards the future of the CADC and we look towards these kind of early successes and scaling them to really help support water managers as we face what are candidly some very challenging hydrologic realities. I liked in the integrated resources plan. Metropolitan talks about sort of the difference between sort of the do nothing scenario where Brandon, forgive me if I don't get it quite right, but it's like ballpark in 2040, do nothing, 8 out of 10 years, there's an allocation, meaning shortage, not good, bad scenario, versus, where if we really prepare for the future, we can ensure water reliability, for generations to come. So I would posit, faced with those structural long-term trends, faced with the empirical reality of legacy IT systems in the water industry, there's always this kind of cultural issue. It's very, municipalities tend to be a bit more risk averse. I would posit that the biggest risk is actually doing nothing, and the status quo is more riskier than trying something that may be a little bit new and a little bit uncertain, but tapping into that kind of pioneering spirit that helped us. The California water industry has a long tradition of visionary excellence. I was talking friends over at Metropolitan earlier about when they built the State Water Project, or here in the LA Aqueduct, or when they built the Colorado River Aqueduct. There's a great quote that I suggest in the room that Metropolitan sponsored that you all check out before you go there. That was around, when they built that was around 20% of the property value of the entire region. Imagine that, putting like 20% of the value of your house on one investment. Very visionary, and I think the California water community has a long tradition of, when there are serious issues at play, doing what needs to be done rather than just what is easy. And so that's why it's really great, and wanted to kind of invite up our panelists up here today, because we've been really blessed, and it's very humbling and very honored to be a part of, to serve this kind of visionary coalition of water managers. So with that, I will, kind of turn it over to our panel as they kind of make their way up. You guys slide down one so I can sit too. So that way I don't talk about it. And we'll go down the line. And I will introduce folks. So this is Elizabeth Lovesaid from Eastern Municipal Water District. She chairs our statewide data action team that work on the governor's framework. So with that, turn it over to her for opening remarks.
Well, good afternoon. Patrick said I had 3 minutes to tell you everything that we're doing with data at Eastern Municipal Water District.
Right.
So one of the things I just want to talk about is that we have a lot of data available to us as water managers, more and more each day. We're working on a deployment of AMI meters, which allows us to know hour by hour, minute by minute, what our customers are using and what their demand is. And as we have access to that data, one of the challenges is starting to develop the tools to use that data and analyze that data. And so some of the things that we've done at Eastern are, one of the things we've done in partnership with the Data Collaborative is we've looked at our recycle customers that all have AMI data. We have a system that is fully subscribed during the summer. So during those summer months, we have to allocate to our customers how much water that they can use. A lot of them are agricultural customers, a lot of them are landscape customers, and obviously during those summer months where, out in the Empire it gets really warm, 110 degrees, and the water starts to turn on. And so what we're looking at is developing a tool where you can look ahead by, 1 day to 4 weeks to start to see what the spikes of use might be, what customers might be doing. And what we can do is we can start to talk to those customers about their behavior and try to see if we can get them to kind of level off their use. And so allowing them to level off their use allows us to kind of use our resources better and use the recycled water that's available and kind of reduce the amount of water that we have to augment. I kind of challenged them that we had a different kind of challenge this winter when we had too much recycled water and we didn't have enough customers taking the recycled water because it was raining and they didn't need it. And so again, we had a challenge of how much water do we keep in storage versus how much water do we discharge. And so a lot of those things, as we get more and more granular data, it's going to help us kind of make those decisions on how we can operate our systems. Granulated data also helps a lot with our conservation efforts. Eastern has what we call an allocation-based rate structure, which means each of our customers has a budget, similar to what they're doing across the state. But this is for each one of our customers. They have an indoor and outdoor budget that says, this is about how much water we think that you need. And then if they use more than that water, that sends them a pretty strong pricing signal that says you need to cut back on what you're using. And this is really helpful to us during the drought. It allowed us to really focus on those customers that were what we call kind of wasteful customers. So that if you were using your water efficiently, we pretty much left you alone. You didn't see a change on your bill. You didn't have to change your lifestyle all that much because you were already very efficient and had a very conserving lifestyle. But if you were in those higher tiers, or you were, even in your budget, you're using more water than most customers in their budget, you started to really see, some higher water bills, and that kind of encouraged our customers to reduce their demand. One of the challenges that we came out of the drought, I think that, we did a lot of turf replacement along with the rest of Southern California, and we were happy to see that and happy to do that, but what we kind of determined is during the drought is it's just a drop in the bucket. So we have a lot more to do if we really want to encourage efficiency, especially when we look at, we call it non-functional turf. And so that's area where turf is just there so that somebody can look at it and mow it. It's not being used as a ball field or, it's not being used to play on. It's just being used for ornamental purposes. And so what we're trying to do, what we're working on this summer is looking at all of our commercial and institutional and landscape budgets and accounts, and we're starting to discern and measure what's functional versus non-functional turf. And so that data is going to allow us to adjust their budgets so that if you have a lot of functional turf, you're going to have a higher budget. But if you have a lot of real ornamental turf, you're going to see that budget go down, and it's going to encourage customers to start to make those long-term investments in efficiency. So those are a couple of things that we're doing at Eastern that kind of use data. Again, the Data Collaborative is helping us develop tools to utilize our data and analyze our data, and we really look forward to continue working with them as we go on. So.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay. Oh, can you hear me? Okay, sorry. Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Stubik. I'm the Water Efficiency Manager at Molten-Nagel Water District. Molten-Nagel is one of the founding agencies of the Data Collaborative. One of the founding agencies of the Data Collaborative. We share in the belief that data, and not just data, but data analytics and modern data tools will really help bring about transformation in the water industry, as it's done in multiple other industries. And so for that reason, we have a very sustained support of the Data Collaborative. So the Data Collaborative provides agencies with clean data and access to brilliant data scientists, which is really great. But they also provide these tools for us, not just for analytical purposes, but for us to inform decision making. Case in point, Molten Nagel used the rate comparison tool that the Data Collaborative developed for our rate study this year. And additionally, we also used the Recycle Water Demand Forecasting tool to right-size infrastructure, and we saved $20 million. So these aren't just dashboards that to view your data. These are actually tools that will produce value for your agencies and for your customers. So for Molten, data is actually a really big deal. The ability to access data, organize it, interpret it, is just fundamental to our demand management strategy. We operate a budget-based rate structure similar to Eastern, where on a daily basis we collect and interpret and update customer billing attributes. So we're looking at household data, irrigable area, we're looking at weather data. And all of those features really combine to really give us a deep appreciation of having good data, because it gives us so much information. We can tell which customers are efficient, which customers are inefficient, and having that insight into our customer base helps us develop programs as well as targeted marketing strategies to keep our customers below their budget and keep our demands low. Another thing that we do with our demand strategy is we like to create more iterative, adaptive programs. And we take a very measured approach to program design. And so, for example, we start out a little slow, a little measured. We create pilot programs, and we build in these iterative checkpoints to make sure that our programs are healthy, and it gives us a chance to get that feedback and really iterate and pivot if we need to, transform it if we need to, or wholly reinvent our programs if necessary. But really, data provides us with that ability to reflect on our programs and make sure that they're actually targeting the audience that we want to target and that they're cost effective. So another strategy that we use in our demand management strategy is targeted marketing. Right now, well, every month our customers get a price signal that's sent to them with their bill and tells them whether they've been efficient or not. But we have also been sending out postcards to our tier 3 and 4 customers, which are over their budget. And we just let them know, hey, here's some opportunities for you to save water, and basically just provide them with the tools to help them save and become more efficient. But we also incorporate targeted marketing into our water efficiency programs. So for example, the district partnered with Ranchio and launched a residential smart timer program recently. And we're really targeting our high use customers with large landscapes. And so rather than having to send out 47,000 postcards to a broad base of residential customers, we can really hone in on the list of customers who actually need smart irrigation technology, send 8,500 postcards, and save money on postage and printing costs, but additionally put the tools and the programs in the hands of the people that actually need it. And so I don't want to go too far over, but in kind of piggybacking off of that point, the district in December 2016 also launched a customer portal. So all of our customers have access, residential, commercial irrigation customers, to view their data, pay their bill, see water savings tips, and just have access to general information about the district. And we also have some customers, about 4,500 irrigation and commercial customers that now have AMI, so they can log in, view their hourly data when they need to, and they can even sign up for leak alerts. And so all that is really great. We're very excited about how the program and the portal has worked out, but that portal has really provided us with a platform for innovation. So our board just recently gave us the green light to pilot an efficiency marketplace. And so the marketplace is going to allow the district to partner with large vendors like Amazon, so that way we can sell high efficiency devices directly through the portal in a safe and secure manner. So customers can log in, check out the marketplace, browse through different high efficiency devices, and make the purchase directly through the portal at a discounted price. So it's almost like an instant rebate. Except customers don't have to wait 10 to 12 weeks to get their check in the mail. We don't have to get phone calls about, what's the status of my rebate. It really streamlines the administrative model, and maybe something that others are interested in. If you are, let me know. But I'd love to come back next year and tell you all about it. But, yes.
It's exciting to hear the new data being used to this extent by water agencies. That's obviously that's a transformation in the way that the water agencies are being run. I'm Mark Gold. I'm Associate Vice Chancellor for Environment and Sustainability at UCLA. I'm also on the Metropolitan Water District Board. I'm on the Mayor's Water Cabinet for the City of LA. And I've chaired Santa Monica's Task Force on the Environment probably for 25 years, so I've been very involved on their water management issues as well. And so wearing sort of multiple hats on this question of the importance of data is that we have a number of researchers who have really been trying to get access to a lot of this data, and they've struggled an awful lot. And so it's great to see the Data Collaborative has obviously broken through in a lot of ways that, that frankly, the university has not been able to. Stephanie Pincel in particular created something called the Water Atlas. She also created an Energy Atlas. And the biggest issue has been the privacy issue from the standpoint of really getting that water data on, whether it's from the DWP or you know, in the case of the electrical utilities, or even some data from Met. It's been a pretty significant struggle to get that. And the issues that have been looked at by Stephanie's group, which are pretty interesting, are, you know, how well are some of our conservation interventions really working? And so they did a series of papers, you know, showing that changing to an incline conservation-based rate structure was really valuable, but didn't have the desired conservation outcome until you partnered it with an outreach program that was very significant. And so the price signal alone wasn't enough, outreach alone wasn't enough. You added them both together and you saw a much stronger effect from the standpoint of conservation. And so that sounds probably common sense to each and every person in this room, but from the standpoint of actually being able to look at the data and actually see that really can help change. You can make recommendations on how to change either your approach on conservation water management. We've also seen, obviously, with mandatory conservation, the value of just even the State Water Resources Control Board putting information out on a monthly basis. And I know a lot of water agencies weren't exactly fond of it, but at the end of the day, I don't think we'd be having a data collaborative discussion right now without that. I think it's really changed the paradigm in a completely different way to say, you know what, this is a good thing. You know, and the reality is it creates a culture of accountability that I think is very, very important in really moving us forward in much smarter water management. Now, sort of wearing a UCLA hat that's a little bit different for this discussion is that, okay, so we're a large customer of DWP too. I mean, people forget that universities, I mean, we're cities basically. There's 80,000 people at UCLA at any given time. It's crazy. And so in that regard, okay, so how are we doing in our own shop? I'd say not that well. You look at water metering on our campus, and it's really only in the newer buildings. And you know, our campus has been around for almost a century, and so that means the vast majority of our building stock isn't even metered on a building by building basis. And that's not a way to manage water in any way, shape, or form. And it sort of brings to bear this larger challenge, and I hope we get into this a little bit with the water agencies that have clearly done this transformation or in the midst of it, which is how do you retrofit all the existing building stock to provide you with the real-time water meters in a cost-effective way, rather than just relying on all new and redevelopment to start giving you this information. You know, we've obviously seen a huge investment at the utility scale in getting real-time metering. For example, Southern California Gas, I think, I can't remember what the numbers are, but it's like 7-8 million real-time meters that they put in a space of about 4 or 5 years throughout their entire service area. The same sort of approach hasn't happened on water, and I think that's really absolutely critical from the standpoint of really moving forward, so that we can use this data on a real basis. One last thing is on the customer side as well, and why that's so critical is right now the vast majority of customers that we see, whether it's a DWP or City of Santa Monica, et cetera, is they're getting their bill once every 2 months or once every month. And that is not enough of a conservation signal to really have an impact. Whereas if they're really getting real-time data, which is great to hear that they have access to that in these water districts like Molten Miguel, that's just a complete game changer from the standpoint of really getting people to change their water management ethic. And we just don't see that in the vast majority of the area. And so how we deal with that from the standpoint of multifamily, commercial, et cetera, and doing those retrofits is really a big challenge that I hope we really try to tackle soon.
Good afternoon. My name is Brandon Goshi. I'm with the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, and I think I'd start by saying, you have to understand who Metropolitan is to understand our perspective on how data is important. And I think, so we're a water wholesaler, large regional water wholesaler. We have 26 member agencies. Some of them are cities and retailers. Some of them are municipal water districts with retailers underneath them. Rough count, 180 retailers in the service area for Southern California. And really at the retail level, that's where the rubber hits the road in terms of data generation and data collection. Okay? For Metropolitan, data is important because data helps us drive the planning and decision making that's necessary to make investments on behalf of a region like ours in a more cost-effective and basically a more resource-effective way. And so I think Metropolitan has been evolving over the past 2-3 decades. Part of that evolution, and I think this is kind of what Mark is getting at, more data is available because the technology is catching up where data acquisition, data storage is more readily available. So I wanted to give kind of an example of how data can be important to a large regional water agency like Metropolitan from, say, a planning standpoint. So from a planning standpoint, we're interested in providing adequate water supplies out into the future, on a large scale that supplements the supplies that are provided by the local agencies closer to the retail level. To do that, we need, say, to estimate what water demand is going to be. Okay? And water demand, like I said, the rubber hits the road on the retail level. So over the years, we have developed models, econometric models, to measure water demand on the basis of the historical information of water use at the retail level. So even though we're a regional agency, we've gone down to the retail level to try and acquire data that helps us describe water use. Our latest rendition, and so I'm going to put on my old man glasses because I can't remember these on my own. So this last rendition that we did in 2014 with the Brattle Group, who's a consulting firm run by David Sunding out of Northern California, we tried to utilize the data of 153 retailers within our service area, where the 153 retailers had 3,000 accounts or more. So that's what we tried to do. We were trying to canvass that information. And now when you start to think through, well, these retailers are going to have varying levels of sophistication in how they collect, manage, and hold data, right? We were successful in getting on 80% of all single-family residential account information. Okay, that sounds great. And that covered all 26 of our member agencies. So for a historical time period, 80% of all single-family residential accounts. Well, when you think about what that data is, though, it's billing data. And billing data is usually collected on a bi-monthly basis, sometimes regularly, sometimes not. So there's a lot of data cleanup that has to go on. So we have we have less of an idea what seasonal variation within the data is and have to basically fix that or make assumptions about that across. We did the same thing for multifamily residential, commercial and industrial, successful in getting 53 retailer data on multifamily residential, covering 23 of our 26 member agencies, and then 75 retailers giving us commercial and industrial information for 25 of 26 agencies. And so you can see already that the problem is now extrapolating or using that data to generalize across to information that you don't have. So when we think about the programs that we do and what water demand is important for, well, water demand affects the amount of water that we need to procure, but it also affects the size of the system, that we need, the treatment capacity that we have, the conservation programs that we want to do, right? And so nowadays, the latest in metering technology, you're going to be able to get 15-minute increment data. Now, what would a large regional water agency want with 15-minute incremental data? I think it's very important, actually. I think it would be very useful. Here's just an example. Our water demand in the region went down during this last drought. But the question is, why did it go down? Why did it go down and how did it go down? I have my opinion, right? I think Mark has his opinion. Other people have their opinions, but we don't really know. We don't really know because we don't have the data to support it. So we take large samples of data, make generalizations, but 15-minute increment intervals, right, that we can tie to other covariates would start to tell us more specifically why the water demand went down, and then be able to help us develop programs to target, right, that type of demand. I think Elizabeth was getting that. Target that type of demand so that we can make better infrastructure sizing decisions, right, time of use programs. You know, it's just as a speculation, one of the best water conservation devices we might have is something that gave the customer real-time information on how they're using water. It might not be the toilets, it might not be taking out turf, it might be telling the customer how you use water so that they can make decisions along the way. And so I'll just leave with this kind of quote or quip that I heard once. So Sacramento is famous, city of Sacramento is famous for not having water meters, right? So they have no water meters, and then they're under mandate to replace their water meters. All of a sudden, they're gonna go from the Stone Ages to having the most advanced water metering system in the state of California. So, you know, not overnight, but with that change, they're gonna have 15-minute incremental data, and they'll be able to do things that maybe they thought they couldn't do before because they had no data.
Yeah, and they're a new addition to the CADC, and it's really great to work with them. I think you look like you were about to pipe in on some of the demand forecasting, or was that? I thought maybe I was reading the body language. One of the key questions as I hear everyone talk is, you know, some of the models for regional collaboration, you know, keep it very simple. Looking at things like measuring conservation program effectiveness. Oftentimes the way it happens, you know, like UCLA will work with LEBWP, we work with Stanford that works up with some Northern California agencies. It's much more of a one university to one agency model. So I was kind of a question for the group, you know, talk to, you know, in terms of multiple benefits with this integrated infrastructure, what are some of the benefits of being able to have, you know, studies with multiple agencies, and then also, you know, being able to have more than one academic institution, kind of being able to look at this, and, you know, so we can really get smart and figure out the why and the how of water demand.
I mean, from a university perspective, obviously having open data is pretty much what universities are all about, and so that, you know, any number of entities can have access to the data and analyze all sorts of different questions. And it's just not, we're not there yet. I mean, maybe we will be there soon, but I mean, really getting down to, you know, this fine-grained parcel-specific data so that we can actually look at conservation interventions, see how effective they are. You know, I mean, look at Metropolitan, you know, most unprecedented investment in outdoor landscaping, change of behavior in American history just occurred, $400 million, right? And so really being able to look at that at a parcel-specific level and seeing, okay, do we see behavioral changes based on the size of property, the climate of where the property is, maybe, you know, average income, maybe there's other sorts of covariates that really could give us a good idea of what works, what doesn't work on those programs. And we're not doing that right now. And so yes, getting all of this in one place, like the aspiration obviously for the data collaborative, it's long overdue. I mean, what I find interesting is, you know, I think Stephanie, who's not a data person, she's a social scientist, for those of you who've ever dealt with her, but she saw this gap, you know, about 8-9 years ago, and has tried to fill it in the energy and water sector. You guys being water people, I think we're much more able to do that with your connections statewide, and really trying to pull all this together and work with the state. And so I think that's really exciting. So from the standpoint of, you know, a university trying to do that, I think they were trying to, I know for a fact she was trying to do it to fill a void, and frankly, you guys are filling that void a lot better. But I hope we get to that point where it's really fine grained, because the other thing that we've seen is, using that tool from the standpoint of going after, the biggest water wasters, et cetera. That also varies on water district by water. Some water districts are willing to do it, other water districts are terrified to do it. But by and large, the more this becomes best practices to use the data for that purpose, hopefully that fear goes away. So.
Definitely. And one technical note, so the way it works for CADC participating agencies, we clean and standardize their metered use data. They can reshare it with signed authorization. There's privacy issues, so it's all behind an NDA. But and we've done this, so if like one of our local retailers wanted to share it with UCLA and Stephanie's group, beyond we also kind of borrow some grad students who collaborate with us. They can do that, and it just takes a signed NDA. Definitely, there's definitely a shift and a lot more work to do. There's a lot of paperwork and transaction costs. But I was curious to hear from some of our CDC retailers. What are some of the benefits for you to be able to share this data and get more of that kind of research long term?
I think from our perspective, the ability to look at data from different sources kind of helps us answer those questions of why. Why is something working? And when you look at different areas, different approaches, you can kind of start to see, okay, why were the results in our area like this, while in another surface area it was something different? Or why were the results the same? We did different things and we got the same results. Was it what we did that actually? So I think having multiple sources of data and multiple eyes on it really helps us kind of dig in and really look at the answers to why things come out the way they are.
Right, I just want to echo that. I think that's really the value of the data collaborative. You have all of our data, and there's really a lot of analyses that just haven't been performed yet. There's American Community Survey data. There's all sorts of market data that are available in terms of vacancy rates, and then all of that can be applied to our data and tell us more about what's going on with the trends with demand management. Just in general, it's not just enough to know about the data. There's this whole metadata and other information that's informing it that Elizabeth was alluding to, which is essentially, like say with the turf program, Met operated the turf program differently than say MODOC did in Orange County, where there were different quality controls and requirements to convert your irrigation. And so if we're seeing differences in water savings, we need to take into consideration that there were differences in the programs and look at those things. So it's not just the social, demographic, economic analysis that can be done on a broad scale. It's looking at kind of the details and the program requirements that may influence long-term water savings.
Yeah, definitely. And then looking at kind of across the region as we look and trying to answer the why and how of what's influencing water demand in this kind of integrated picture. How does as we get kind of more of these studies, I know some of the challenges in the water industry, there'll be studies, but it's they happen every couple of years. There's other things. What are the benefits from kind of a regional perspective? We're able to kind of measure and we always love the word iterate, but course correct. It's kind of adaptive management. And a question for Brandon.
It's an interesting question because, and I think here, just as a matter of convenience, we're just using the term data.
Right.
But data exists in different forms. When I talked about the billing level data,
right.
Well, that's what we can procure from all of those retailers at a billing level to be able to get sectors. When we went through the last two kind of drought challenged periods, right, we had an interest at Metropolitan in seeing whether or not the interventions that we were doing from an outreach perspective were having an impact. And in order to get to answers about that, billing level data is not going to help you because of that lag, right? We're not at the point where we get kind of 15-minute real-time data. So, and actually I wanted to recognize Mike Hollis from Metropolitan's up there. He conducted a study, and what we used there was retail level operational data. So there are system operations that told us how much water went in, out, and up, down in storage. So every day we knew how much water was used by that utility. And then using that with other covariates, when the, whether it's the weather or whether it's the intervention itself and how long it ran, we could see from a larger scale whether or not there's a significant difference in demand over some periods of time. But even that, I guess what I'm saying is, it's non-standard, right? And we certainly couldn't pick out from that data commercial, industrial versus residential versus multifamily. It's going to be a system-wide because that's the data that you can acquire. So I think, you know, continuing this, and you use the word iteration, and I think it's true, continuing this kind of loop of, gosh, what do we really need to know? And what do we need to know to get to know it? And how do we do that? And then, and this is kind of a pragmatic thing, and I'll say it in front of Mark and Rich over there, two of our board members, and then sometimes you're gonna have to accept second best.
Right.
Because that data is not there. And I think that also is a risk in this kind of open collaborative data sharing, is that open source analysis isn't necessarily tailored or paying attention to the specifics that might exist for an agency. And so where conclusions start to go in different directions, you know, then you have an issue of responding to data analysis with your own data analysis and trying to figure out, you know, what's the best course for your utility or your agency or for the public. It's a challenge, but I want to color that challenge by saying, obviously, the best data and the most coordinated data is going to make for the best results, and that should be kind of the gold standard that we're looking for and work towards that.
Absolutely. So, you know, we like to start on time and end on time, so I will thank everyone for joining the panel, and we'll have an interactive, hope everyone after this, we'll have some of the tools, we have folks around here that you can ask deeper questions. Please come up and talk to the panelists. Final thing I would note, you know, when we talk to some of the open data folks, they always call us more closed, because we're much more closed than like the standard, you know, like cities have all these open data portals where they throw everything on the web, and I think what you're talking about in terms of curated and all that stuff, it's actually, it's a broader maturation that's happening in the kind of open data world. And with that, I hope you join me in thanking the panelists. And then before we break, we do have, from our friends over at Civic Spark, a final short video, which I thought was quite nice. So I think a lot of, you know, some of the challenges, you know, as you talk about privacy, data sharing, a lot of these things come down to trust, you know, and I think one of the important things to note is, you know, we look with this historic drought, future uncertainty, really at the end of the day, we're all on the same team. It's kind of in the water community trying to manage for future uncertainty. This is a video from our friends down in San Diego. Some of the Civic Spark fellows put together a nice video, so final thoughts from them.
Hello, my name is Electrified Data. I am the Civic Spark Climate Fellow assigned to San Diego County. Recently, we've been discussing the state of conservation and what it means to those in this region, and the conversation has taken our stakeholders on quite a journey, one that is worth exploring. When we look at conservation as a way of life, it's pretty apparent that San Diego County is a very unique place. And though it's often overshadowed by well-known cities like Los Angeles and conversations about Southern California, it's actually becoming quite a hub for sustainability ventures and conservation efforts. We asked local stakeholders how conservation is unique in San Diego County, and obviously many focus on water, as the historic drought has its lingering effects even with recent rainfall. But there's more to the story in that water conservation is not simply reducing water use, but also diversifying our water supply. We spoke to officials in the northern inland cities and learned that San Diego County is no longer completely reliant on imported water. It was noted that its diversified supply portfolio includes recycled water via purple pipes and non-potable recycled water, as well as desalinated water through the Carlsbad desalination plant, which is fantastic. Conservation in this region also applies to new climate adaptation and mitigation plans and strategies, be it energy efficiency, habitat restoration, xeriscaping, or even working one-on-one with farmers to establish sustainable agriculture practices. San Diego County is committed to raising awareness and enhancing conservation education in all realms. It It should also be noted that some of these best practices are visible to those walking through places like Balboa Park, where we recently celebrated 10 LEED structure certifications, as well as other conservation efforts that are less visible, like those conducted by SDG&E or water pollution control facilities. Summarizing how San Diego County is embracing conservation can be pretty difficult as well, because our region is so eclectic in its many climate practices. And although it's known for its beautiful scenery and beaches, it's also with much pride that we are noted for protecting and maintaining them. We have a lot of iconic landmarks and natural landscapes that need to be maintained and sustained, but it really is the flora, the fauna, and the human beings that need to be protected too. So luckily this isn't impossible. Through reaching out to our community leaders and making big and small changes, we have made a significant positive impact in our surroundings and in the well-being of those living throughout the region. San Diego County really is becoming a leader in the sustainability field and in sustainable best practices, and it is now more than ever that such leaders are needed. We're happy to be stepping up to the plate and to be setting the bar high for embracing conservation as a way of life.
Great, so thank you all for coming out here today. It's kind of just a fun final video to kind of, I always think it's great to get an on-the-ground perspective. If you have other ideas about future water management, how to make conservation a way of life, we'd love to hear it. There's an idea board staffed by our very own Holly Torpy. We also have our rate comparison tools set up in this conference room behind you. We've opened up so it's nice and inviting. Sort of have which Tom Ash always calls the genius bar of rate modelers from Molten Miguel. So if you have any questions about that, thank you so much. And then very much a team effort. All our CADC collaborators here, many of them identified. Thank you all for coming out and have some more food, mingle. There's a lot of interactive demos set up, and enjoy the time. Thank you.